Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Bigham, with you on this Thursday, June 18th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, General Secretary Xi Jinping of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee has called for preserving revolutionary traditions while striving for progress. The U.S. and Iranian presidents have digitally signed the MoU for ending the conflict between their countries. And for the second year in a row, the annual G7 meetings concluded without issuing an agreed-on closing message. In business, China accounted for more than 3/4 of the world's new wind power generation last year. In sports, another European football power held to a draw at the World Cup. In culture and entertainment, documentaries take center stage at the Shanghai International Film Festival. Now checking the day's top stories. General Secretary Xi Jinping of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee has called on party members to carry forward revolutionary traditions and strive for new accomplishments. The Chinese president made the call in a reply letter to Zheng Liansheng, a 102-year-old party member. Zheng devoted his life to communication technology. He began as a radio operator about 80 years ago and still follows the party and the country's development closely. He wrote a letter to General Secretary Xi, recalling his revolutionary work experience and expressing belief in always following the party. President Xi extended greetings to Zheng and all other elderly party members across the country. He also expressed his respect to Zheng for his contributions. And this year marks the 105th founding anniversary of the Communist Party of China. Two Zimbabwean officials have called for stronger party exchanges between their country and China. Zimbabwean Information Minister Jamu Soda is one of them.
My view is that we just need to strengthen our collaboration, party-to-party collaboration, as much as they are collaborations on government to government. Our parties must continue to interact from time to time, having similar exchanges like the one that we are having on government to government, so that our leaders in the party may also get this kind of experience that CPC had. So a lot has to be exchanged between our parties so that we also get to know what can be done by our party, ZANU-PF, to stay for long leading our country, Zimbabwe.
Farai Marapira is the Director for Information and Publicity for the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front. He says his country can learn a lot from China's experience.
We have noted that we also can do well by adapting some of the concepts used by the CPC in the advancement of their people. We note that from 1949, the CPC was focusing on an agrarian revolution, ensuring that and investment in the intellectual capacity of their people, their human capital base. So these are some of the things that we are focusing on. And we've also noted that they have also focused on infrastructural development, ensuring that there is a lesser cost of transportation of goods and ensuring that there is a better service in general. And this is also something that we have been achieving under the leadership of President Mnangagwa. We have been working on our roads, we are now working on our rail to ensure that we have a seamless infrastructural setup. We have also noted that the CPC has been a global leader in the issue of technology, ensuring that these great strides happening in technology occur for the betterment of their people and for the ease of the life of their citizens. And this is also one other lesson that we get from the CPC.
That was Farai Marapira of the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front. The Museum of the Communist Party of China is marking its 5th year of operation. It opened ahead of the party's centenary in 2021. As the party approaches its 105th anniversary, the museum has become a popular destination for visitors. Chen Mengfai has more.
Milestones of a party and the transformation of a nation. Millions have toured these halls since the Museum of the Communist Party of China opened on June 18, 2021, the year marking the CPC's centenary. The institution draws a diverse crowd, and given its serious theme, a surprisingly large number of young visitors.
I think the party's history is closely connected with today's international relations. So learning about it will be helpful for me to understand current affairs more clearly.
Our material life is abundant enough now, so sometimes we feel a bit spiritually empty and lose our drive. But seeing these things gives me a renewed sense of purpose, something to carry as I go to college.
Today's visit is related to a dream of mine. I also want to join the party one day.
While Chinese visitors are often moved by the hardships of the past, international guests tend to be impressed by the technology of the present.
There was monitor in all the room, on all the walls, and you feel you like as in that day in that history.
It has become a popular stop on diplomatic itineraries, with a growing list of prominent figures over the past 5 years.
We've received 17 heads of state, 11 heads of government, and more than 100 foreign dignitaries, including leaders of political parties.
As the party's 105th anniversary approaches, 4 new exhibitions are opening that cover topics from urban governance to arts and culture. The CPC Museum has more than 100,000 square meters of exhibition space. But in a way, its biggest and most vivid hall is the one out here, being lived by the Chinese people.
That was Chen Mengfei reporting. Well, as the Myanmar president's visiting China this week, bilateral relations are once again in the spotlight. One of the strongest areas of cooperation is agriculture. Researchers from the two countries are working together in Yunnan to boost innovation, productivity, and trade. Yang Jinghao reports from the southwestern Chinese province.
Continue.
Oh, okay. Now I will suppress the dilution.
In a laboratory in Yunnan, Myanmar researcher April is studying biological control methods for sugarcane diseases. She is spending a year at the Yunnan Academy of Agricultural Sciences as part of an exchange program.
In sugarcane area, other area, China is very advanced, and I think if I come here and learn some advanced technology, and then after I come back, I can contribute to my communities and my country.
Sugarcane is one of Myanmar's major cash crops and an important source of income for many families. For April, learning from Chinese researchers is both a valuable opportunity and the start of a longer scientific journey.
Now I am finding the pathogenic fungi from sugarcane smut infected plants. And then, after I get the pathogenic fungi, I will go to the molecular works for biocontrol.
April's research builds on years of agricultural cooperation between China and Myanmar. Since 2008, the Academy has worked with the Myanmar partners on sugarcane breeding, cultivation techniques, and technology transfer.
Through the introduction of our sugarcane varieties and cultivation techniques, average sugarcane yields in Myanmar have increased from 3.8 to 4.5 tons per MoU.
Higher yields have also strengthened agricultural trade. During the 2025 to 26 sugarcane crushing season, Myanmar exported more than 2 million tons of sugarcane to Yunnan, creating jobs in Myanmar while supporting for China's sugar industry. Beyond sugarcane, cooperation has expanded to a wide range of crops, including upland rice, soybean, and tropical fruits. It spans the entire agricultural value chain, from breeding to quality testing. At the heart of this partnership is talent exchange. So far, the Academy has hosted 14 researchers from Myanmar and dispatched nearly 40 agricultural experts to the country. The next focus is strengthening cooperation on agricultural standards and quality testing.
By enhancing the ability of Myanmar's young scientists to improve standard systems, China and Myanmar can work toward greater compatibility in agricultural standards. This will further facilitate bilateral trade.
As cooperation continues to deepen, China and Myanmar are expected to unlock even greater potential in agricultural development and trade.
That was Yang Jinghao reporting. Beijing's held a seminar to mark the 70th anniversary of China-Africa and China-Arab ties. Participants say China's cooperation with African and Arab states serves as a model for South-South collaboration. Wang Mengjie has more.
Over the past 7 decades, both China-Africa and China-Arab ties have expanded far beyond trade and infrastructure, with the scholars highlighting the growing role of development cooperation.
Today, the Global South has reached a new crossroads. Facing the uncertain world, China, African nations, and Arab countries can join hands to better contribute the wisdom of Global South countries, including Asia, Africa, and Latin America, to global governance and development.
There are 2 key words to describe the outcomes of China-Arab cooperation: solidarity and unity. When we established diplomatic relations 70 years ago, unity was indeed evident. Today, as the world enters a period of turbulence, we still need to work together for modernization and maintain solidarity among Asia and Africa.
As the world grapples with uncertainty, experts say both China-Africa and China-Arab cooperation stand as models for South-South collaboration.
I believe, we are on the right track, and the relation will going to be stronger more and more.
They believe the increased market access, expanded cultural exchanges, and deeper strategic cooperation could open new opportunities. 70 years on, China-Africa and China-Arab ties are better positioned to build a higher-level community with a shared future. Experts believe it will bring fresh wisdom and strength to the broader pursuit of world peace and development.
That was Wang Mengjie reporting. Coming up, the U.S. and Iran have digitally signed the MoU for ending their conflict.
A Chinese car maker, a Japanese factory, a British production line. Could this be the future of the global auto industry? As Chery considers building vehicles at Nissan's Sunderland plant, we examine whether this is simply a business deal or a sign of a new phase in China's automotive globalization. Why are Chinese makers shifting from exporting vehicles to building overseas production networks? How likely is this partnership move beyond an MoU? And amid political, regulatory, and market uncertainties, could this become a blueprint for China's global expansion or a cautionary tale? Get all these and more at this week's Chat Lounge, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on CGTN Radio.
At 13 past the hour, U.S. President Donald Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian have digitally signed the Memorandum of Understanding on ending the war. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghei says after the 2 leaders signed the MoU, the talks set for Friday in Switzerland have been put on hold for now. Pakistan, a key mediator, says Iran will immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz, while the U.S. will lift its naval blockade as a first step of the agreement's implementation. U.S. President Donald Trump, who attended the G7 summit in France, has confirmed he signed the document. He says the MoU is not the end, warning that the U.S. will resume attacks on Iran if Tehran fails to meet its commitments. Sarah Coates has more.
US President Donald Trump has wrapped up his 3-day trip to the G7 summit here in France, defending his deal with Iran, but making clear he sees it as the beginning of the process and not the end. Now, speaking after these days of talks with G7 and other leaders, Trump called the agreement a breakthrough, saying it had helped calm oil markets and reduce the risk of a wider regional crisis. But he's also warning Iran that Washington could return to military action if Tehran fails to meet its commitments. Let's take a listen to what we did hear from the US president.
It should be permanently, but if it's not permanently, we will bomb them. They will be bombed, just like I bombed them on Wednesday night and Tuesday night, and was going to bomb them on Thursday night at a level that was 3 times greater.
US officials saying the wording is deliberately broad, designed to open the door to further talks rather than settle every difficult issue now. Now, those talks are expected to cover Iran's nuclear program, sanctions relief, regional security, and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. But there's pressure on the energy side, with a temporary US Treasury waiver allowing purchases of Russian oil and petroleum products already loaded at sea as of April 17th. Well, that's due to expire unless Washington extends it again. Now, the US Treasury Secretary had framed the waivers as a way to limit market turmoil from the Iran conflict, but has previously suggested that this one may not be renewed. Now, G7 leaders have backed the US-Iran deal, saying they're ready to help implement it.
That was Sarah Coates reporting. The finalized memorandum of understanding between Tehran and Washington on ending the war includes 14 points. It says that Iran and the U.S., along with their allies, agree to end the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, immediately and permanently. The U.S. will begin to lift its naval blockade and stop any actions against Iran, ending the blockade within 30 days. Iran will make arrangements to the best of its ability to provide safe passage for commercial ships free of charge through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran reaffirms its commitment not to acquire nuclear weapons, adding that Tehran and Washington have agreed to resolve the issue about Tehran's stockpile of enriched uranium through a mutually agreed system. The U.S. commits, along with its regional partners, to developing a plan for Iran's reconstruction and economic development by providing at least $300 billion US. The U.S. will provide all necessary approvals, waivers, and permissions for financial transactions and commit to lifting all sanctions against Iran. The two sides also commit to negotiating a final agreement within a maximum period of 60 days, extendable by mutual consent. But as Seper Saremi reports, many differences remain over what can and cannot be negotiated.
The U.S.-Iran MoU offers a framework to end the conflict, but the deal's success remains uncertain. While Washington demands nuclear and regional compliance, Tehran insists its core security pillars remain strictly off limits, regardless of the agreement's economic incentives.
Under no circumstances and in no way is Iran's missile capability negotiable. It is our red line. This is an unchangeable principle. Hezbollah is a red line for the Islamic Republic. We have written in the first clause of our proposals that the Lebanon front is equivalent to the Iran front. If you intend to strike them, it means you are striking Iran. We have made this clear. We stated this previously as well. And when the Zionist regime made the mistake of hitting the Dahiya, we responded immediately.
Beyond regional concerns, Iran's nuclear program remains a central point of contention in the deal's framework. While officials have signaled a willingness to discuss the program, they maintain that control over their own nuclear materials is a non-negotiable aspect of their sovereignty.
First of all, it will not leave Iran, nor will it be transferred. This is a red line. Why are they so sensitive about the 400 kilograms? They claim that since the enrichment level is 60%, there is no need for it. The maximum concession we are offering is to dilute it for our own needs. For instance, diluting it to 20% for the Tehran research reactor based on domestic requirements. Therefore, the point that Trump and propaganda apparatuses are making, that it will be transferred, is baseless. It will not be transferred anywhere outside of Iran's borders.
For political observers in Tehran, these red lines define Iran's leverage as negotiations move forward. Professor Syed Mohammad Marandi from the University of Tehran says several key demands must be met before any lasting agreement can take shape.
Iran's red lines are Iran's red lines. So we said that unless they release our assets at the beginning, we will not sign a deal. We said that there has to be waivers for Iranian energy exports. Otherwise, we won't accept the deal. Iran said that the United States has to accept the end of war and occupation in Lebanon. Otherwise, there's no deal. And the United States has to lift the siege on Iranian ports immediately unless there's no deal. And Iran refused to have the nuclear program negotiated in the first for the first phase.
As the world watches the Strait of Hormuz begin to reopen, one critical question remains. Can Washington and Tehran navigate these strict red lines, or will they become the next major hurdle in this fragile peace?
That was Saper Saremi in Tehran. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says the country's always supported Iran's reasonable and legitimate claims and its efforts to safeguard its sovereignty and security. He made the remarks in a phone call with his Iranian counterpart. And Abbas Araghchi briefed Wang on the memorandum of understanding between Iran and the U.S. and thanked China for its role in promoting diplomacy. Wang said China welcomes the signing of the first phase MoU and supports the mediation efforts of Pakistan and the international community. He said the Strait of Hormuz navigation issue must be properly addressed. Wang added that China supports Iran in improving regional ties and exploring a joint regional security framework. Israeli military operations in Lebanon show no sign of easing despite the MoU between the U.S. and Iran. An Israeli drone strike killed one person in southern Lebanon on Thursday. The Israeli military says one of its soldiers was killed the night before and 7 others were wounded. Hezbollah leader Sheikh Naim Qassem says the group rejects disarmament and that negotiations with Israel should focus on mutual security and the restoration of Lebanon's sovereignty. Iranian armed forces warned that Israel will face strong retaliatory responses if it continues military operations in Lebanon. Israeli strikes have caused tens of thousands of civilian casualties in Lebanon. Many residents have been displaced by the fighting, only to later find their homes destroyed.
When I stood in front of my house and saw what was left, I could no longer hold back my tears. There are still burn marks inside. Everything is in darkness. We once had a shop here with goods worth a significant amount of money. Now everything is gone. The only relief is that my children are safe and none of my family members were harmed.
Since I was born, life has been like this: fleeing, returning, fleeing again, returning again. My whole life has been consumed by this endless cycle. I stocked up on supplies, thinking this would be the final war. But once the supplies ran out, the fighting returned. We have not known a single moment of peace.
Professor Wang Jina, a Middle East expert, says maintaining peace remains essential as Washington and Tehran negotiate differing views on the Strait of Hormuz and nuclear issues.
The problem is that we're talking about the deal. Of course, it is a very positive development for the end of the long-term crisis and uncertainties in this region, particularly between the United States and Iran. But the problem is that, first, on the one hand, it's actually the finalization of the ceasefire. It means that everybody has a text so that they could ensure that the ceasefire would continue. And also, on the other hand, on the outline, it's kind of the timeline. They set a kind of timeline for the development for the negotiation between the United States and Iran. I mean, under which that they could push forward to end the crisis. That all the concerns, shared concerned issues through dialogue and negotiations. So here we have to talk about this problem and obstacles. I think the obstacles are very clear. On the one hand, lots of ambiguities inside the text, how to define the so-called peaceful utilization of nuclear capability, and how to define the free passage of the Strait of Hormuz, how to define, for example, the regional security issues. These are the ambiguities that couldn't be answered in this deal, so that deserve more negotiations. And also, on the other hand, we have to know a lot of the obstacles come from this kind of distrust, and also come from the deal's lack of mechanism for the guarantees. It means that it should be based upon the United States and Iran's negotiation of their own willingness rather than other countries' guarantee. So that's why I think we'll face a lot of obstacles and difficulties in the next 60 days, although the deal has been signed.
That was Middle East expert Wang Jin. And coming up, the G7 nations have once again failed to issue a common statement at the end of their annual meetings.
Pulse Plus, a selection of the best podcasts in China, covering history, customs, music, literature, and in-depth dialogues. Find your way to a wealth of Chinese culture and thinking, all on Pulse Plus.
24 minutes past the hour. The G7 summit's concluded in France without a final communique. This is the second year in a row that the group has failed to adopt a closing message. French President Emmanuel Macron says he was aware of the differences between the U.S. and the 6 allies on several issues before the summit, but they agreed to increase military support for Kyiv and impose stronger sanctions on Russia. The European Union also voiced support for Kyiv, but there's no agreement on how to share the funds. Dasha Chernyshova has more.
Well, the Kremlin is yet to respond to this statement, but what we have seen was that Moscow in general doesn't really care about the statements coming from the West because they do expect them to be all in line with the general anti-Russian narrative. So we've heard the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova early in the day saying that the behavior of the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky at the G7 summit is actually reflecting his attempts to show that he's actually the one who is managing the organization and is capable of getting the results that he wants. But in the meantime, we understand that Russia is still steadfast when it comes to its resolve to achieve the goals of its so-called special military operation in Ukraine by military means or by diplomacy if Moscow believes Ukraine gets back to the negotiating table. So at this stage, it does seem that any statement coming from the Western countries regarding the tighter sanctions or perhaps more military aid to Ukraine is not going to affect Russia's operation and will only be prolonging this conflict. So from the Russian perspective, what the West should be doing is actually trying to help to broker the negotiations in which Moscow says Kyiv is not taking part.
That was Dasha Chernyshova reporting. There's a shortage of health workers for handling the Ebola outbreak in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. DRC officials say they lack the personnel to identify suspected cases and transport patients to medical facilities. More construction materials are also needed to build isolation wards. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report that tens of thousands of people who've come into contact with confirmed Ebola cases remain untraced. The outbreak of the rare Bundibugyo strain has grown to more than 800 confirmed cases, and fears are growing that this Ebola outbreak could become the worst on record, surpassing the West African epidemic from 2014 to 16 that killed more than 11,000 people. And for more, Asiya Namdar spoke to the former Deputy Director General, Dr. Ahmed Ogwell of the Africa CDC. He discussed challenges such as late detection, conflict zones, and a lack of licensed vaccines. He also flagged community engagement as a critical first step.
This outbreak is special in several ways. First is that it was detected late after it had been in circulation for some time. And that means that the numbers from the beginning were more than we were counting. Second is that it's in a conflict area, and therefore deploying health workers, engaging with the communities is much more difficult, much more unsafe than in a non-conflict area. And also dealing with the different entities that are controlling the different parts of the area is also complicated. Third is we don't have any licensed therapeutic or vaccine. And that means that we only use the usual public health measures to try and bring this under control. And finally it is in an area which is near other countries. And therefore, with all the movements, cross-border importation becomes a concern, and therefore there is need for us to act a little bit faster than we are doing now so that we can be able to contain this within the space where it started.
So with all the challenges that you mentioned, and those are pretty big obstacles, Dr. Ogwell, what needs to happen right now, with having said all the things that you said, to bring this virus under control, if you will?
My advice that we need to do, and right now, is community engagement. The community needs to be spoken to in the language they understand, context-specific messaging, and appreciating and accommodating their cultural practices.
That was Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, a former Deputy Director General of the Africa CDC. We're at 29 past the hour. Beijing overcast this evening. Moderate rainfall developing tomorrow. The low is 23. It's up to 29 on Friday. Shanghai will see a light rain tonight, becoming moderate rain tomorrow. A low of 24 and a high of 29. Chongqing will have a light rain this evening, easing off the cloudy conditions for Friday. A low of 21. The high is 31. Nanchang will see moderate rainfall tonight, becoming heavy rain tomorrow. A low of 26 and a high of 20. 29. Laos is getting showers tonight and tomorrow, a low of 12 and a high of 24. Elsewhere in Africa, Islamabad will see a light rainfall overnight and tomorrow, low of 25 and a high of 36. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, General Secretary Xi Jinping of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee has called for preserving revolutionary traditions while striving for progress. The U.S. and Iranian presidents have digitally signed the MoU for ending the conflict between their countries. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
From the refreshing cup of tea that starts your morning to the paper that you write on, the roots of many familiar parts of modern life can be traced back to ancient ideas. Join us on Made in Ancient China and discover how ideas born millennia ago became some of the world's greatest treasures. Made in Ancient China brings you stories of human ambition, inspiration, and connection. Now available on all major podcast platforms.
Shh, listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. Right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Thursday. Still to come. In business, China accounted for more than 3/4 of the world's new wind power generation last year. In sports, another European football power held to a draw at the World Cup. In culture and entertainment, documentaries take center stage at the Shanghai International Film Festival. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTN Radio. You're also welcome to subscribe to our Substack newsletter Beyond Beijing for the world's biggest stories, along with sharp insights and exclusive analysis. But now checking the day's headlines, here's Wang Zihang.
Thank you, Shane. General Secretary Xi Jinping of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee has called on party members to carry forward revolutionary traditions and strive for new accomplishments. The Chinese leader made the call in a reply letter to Jiang Liansheng, a 102-year-old party member. Jiang devoted his life to communication technology. He began as a radio operator about 80 years ago and still follows the party and the country's development closely. He wrote a letter to General Secretary Xi recalling his revolutionary work experience and expressing belief in always following the party. President Xi extended greetings to Jiang and all the elderly party members across the country. He also expressed his respect to Jiang for his contributions. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met with the Cambodian King and the Queen Mother who are in China for health exams. Wang conveyed greetings from President Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan. He said the two countries have treated each other with sincerity and friendship, setting a model for state-to-state relations. This year marks 70 years since the first visit to China made by King Father of Cambodia, Norodom Sihanouk. China says it welcomes the signing of the first phase of memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian says it could help ease tensions and consolidate momentum for the ceasefire.
We hope that all relevant parties, including the United States and Iran, will uphold the spirit of contracts and faithfully honor their commitments. Force will not solve the problem, and equal negotiation is the right way forward. China hopes that both the United States and Iran will approach the second phase of negotiations with a rational and pragmatic attitude, meet each other halfway, and work together to strive for positive outcomes in the next stage of negotiations.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian have digitally signed the Memorandum of Understanding on ending the war. China has urged the Group of Seven to follow market economy principles and international trade rules and avoid forming exclusive groups that disrupt the global economic order. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian was responding to a G7 statement that calls for reduced reliance on any single supplier for critical minerals, a move seen as targeting China. Lin said China's commitment to maintaining the stability and security of global industrial and supply chains for critical minerals remains unchanged. A UN report shows that 2025 saw the highest number of grave violations against children in armed conflict since records began 30 years ago. The UN verified over 38,500 violations affecting more than 24,000 children. For the first time in 3 decades, government forces were the main perpetrators. Killings rose 34% from 2024, with over 6,200 children killed and nearly 8,000 maimed. Thousands more were recruited, abducted, or denied humanitarian aid. Sexual violence, including gun rape used as a war tactic, continued unabated. The UN Special Representative called 2025 one of the darkest chapters for child protection, warning that states meant to protect children are instead contributing to their suffering. She stressed that detained children should be treated as victims, not criminals. The report noted that these are only UN-verified cases, meaning the true scale is likely even worse. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the UN's Children and Armed Conflict Mandate. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has vowed that the military group will not disarm despite threats from Israel, saying any such project will not pass. He urged Lebanon to leverage US-Iran negotiations to secure an Israeli withdrawal, proposing army deployment only south of the Litani River. Qassem also called on the government to abandon direct talks with Israel. He spoke to supporters commemorating Ashura in Beirut's southern suburbs.
All right, thank you very much. That's Wang Ziheng with headlines. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in business, China accounted for more than 3/4 of the world's new wind power generation last year.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
36 past the hour. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed mixed on Thursday. The Shanghai Composite fell by 0.4%, while the Shenzhen Component rose by 0.9% to a one-month high as investors turned to technology stocks following pledges of support for innovation at the Lu Jiazui Forum. Authorities said they'll back stock market listings for startups in future industries including quantum technology, nuclear fusion, and brain-computer interfaces. Mainland markets will be closed on Friday for the Dragon Boat Festival holiday. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index fell nearly 1.6%. In Japan, the Nikkei rose more than 1.6%. An industry report says China continued to dominate global offshore wind power growth in 2025, accounting for around 78% of newly added grid-connected capacity worldwide. Global offshore wind additions reached around 9.3 gigawatts, up 16%, with China contributing around 7.2 gigawatts. By the end of the year, total global offshore wind capacity stood at roughly 92.5 gigawatts, with China accounting for roughly 52 gigawatts or 56%. China's 15th five-year plan calls for further expansion along key coastal regions, expecting installed capacity to surpass 100 gigawatts by 2030. China's top economic regulator says the country is accelerating construction of a unified national computing power network driven by rapid AI growth. By the end of March, China's intelligent computing capacity had reached 2.5 times the level of a year earlier. The National Development and Reform Commission says the system's built around a national layout of computing hubs, clusters, and computing power integration zones. By the end of last year, 145 backbone fiber routes had been completed, cutting inter-hub and interprovincial latency to under 20 milliseconds. 6 months on from the launch of island-wide special customs operations in Hainan province, new data points to strong growth momentum. Zero-tariff imports at the Hainan Free Trade Port surged 120% yearly by the end of May. During the same period, Hainan's goods trade jumped nearly 55%. The Free Trade Port in southern China is also attracting more businesses, with the number of new market entities rising by around 60% over the 6-month period. The 5th Tashkent International Investment Forum is open, drawing more than 7,600 participants from around 100 countries under the theme Investment Resilience, New Frontiers, New Partnerships. Chinese investments stood out at the forum, with officials and business leaders calling China Uzbekistan's largest trade, investment, and technology partner. Aigiram Kylie has more.
Uzbekistan is becoming one of Central Asia's most attractive investment hubs. At the annual forum, global investors and business leaders are exploring new partnerships and signing agreements for future cooperation.
We had set a goal for Uzbekistan's economy to reach a gross domestic product of $100 billion.
Foreign investment in Uzbekistan continues to accelerate.
We applaud the dramatic changes that have
Nearly
taken
20,000 foreign invested companies now operate across the country, reflecting growing investor confidence and ongoing economic reforms.
The majority of retail was happening on street bazaars, and people were very underserviced in terms of your convenient digital products, in terms of digital banking. We are here to change the life and the consumer behavior.
With more than $50 billion in projects underway, China has become Uzbekistan's largest foreign investor. Chinese companies are expanding across key sectors, including automotive manufacturing, infrastructure, energy, and renewables.
We are not talking only about large-scale projects. We are also seeing growing interest from Chinese small and medium-sized businesses that are actively entering the Uzbek market. The visa-free regime we introduced for Chinese citizens has certainly helped accelerate this process and encouraged greater investment activity.
International organizations are also actively engaged in Uzbekistan, including the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and UN agencies. They support a wide range of social, economic, and infrastructure projects.
We've been active in this region for decades now, and just in Uzbekistan we invest just short of €1 billion every year in infrastructure, in financial sector, in the corporate sector. It has been a growing and very successful investment climate for us.
Uzbekistan is steadily moving beyond a resource-based economy, positioning itself not merely as a supplier of raw materials, but as a reliable and equal partner for global investors. Its strength lies not only in natural resources, but also in human capital and expanding digital infrastructure.
When we talk about the countries of Central Asia, today it is one of the most peaceful and stable regions, serving as a bridge between the West, the East, the North, and the South, enabling mutual connectivity and exchange.
Driven by investment and reform, Uzbekistan is rapidly emerging as the leading business destination in Central Asia.
That was Aigiram Kylie reporting. The China Development Bank says it issued more than $30 billion in loans by the end of May to support technological upgrades and equipment renewal. The financing covers industries including manufacturing, energy, power, transport, and logistics, with nearly 70% going into intelligent, green, and high-end industrial upgrades. Lending for tech transformation and equipment upgrades surged 120% in the first 5 months. The bank says it'll continue supporting large-scale equipment upgrades and consumer goods trade-in programs to boost demand and develop new growth drivers. The Federal Reserve has held interest rates steady as the U.S. economy continues to grapple with inflation at a 3-year high. It was the first rate decision since Trump nominee Kevin Warsh took over as Fed chair. Owen Fairclough reports.
A new regime starts with nothing new at the U.S. Federal Reserve. Kevin Warsh chairing his first board meeting and a decision to maintain the interest rate that steers the economy at the same level.
The committee decided to maintain the target range for the Fed funds rate at 3.5% to 3.75%.
Surging inflation caused directly by the US-Iran conflict's impact on energy prices is now more than double the Fed's target. But Warsh has argued underlying inflation that strips out big price swings for things like energy isn't as high as conventional measures suggest. That's typically an argument for cutting that rate to gradually bring down the cost of borrowing. But the Fed thinks inflation will remain elevated until the end of the year, and the Board of Governors who vote on monetary policy was unanimous in Wednesday's decision. Warsh's drive to change inflation measurements that can favour low interest rates attracted criticism, partly because it aligns with the view of the man who nominated him, President Donald Trump.
Most of the data that central bankers and other government officials in the United States consume come with old-fashioned survey methods, national accounts of what the U.S. economy looks like that looks very little like the U.S. economy in 2026.
Trump tried to fire Walsh's predecessor amid constant demands for a lower rate that Jerome Powell largely resisted. And yet those who favour a rate cut can point to an overall resilient economy despite inflation. Retail sales jumped in May, according to data released on Wednesday, following strong jobs numbers and unemployment that remains historically low.
That was Owen Fairclough reporting. The International Energy Agency says oil inventories in OECD countries fell in May to their lowest level since 1990 as governments drew down stocks to offset disruptions to Gulf crude shipments during the Middle East conflict. OECD stocks have fallen by around 163 million barrels. The IEA also coordinated emergency releases totaling 400 million barrels to the global market, with 252 million barrels released as of June 12th. The agency warns that high prices are expected to weigh on demand through the year, with consumption projected to fall by around 1.1 million barrels per day. The Swiss government lowered its economic growth forecast for 2026 to 0.9%, down from 1% in March, citing higher energy prices linked to the tensions in the Middle East. It also cut its 2027 outlook to 1.6%, down from 1.7%, both below Switzerland's long-term average growth rate of 1.8%. The State Secretariat for Economic Affairs says higher energy costs are expected to lift global inflation and lead to tighter monetary policy, especially among European trading partners. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, another European football power held to a draw at the World Cup.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
46 past and turning to sports. In Group K action at the World Cup, the Democratic Republic of the Congo held Portugal to a 1-1 draw as Cristiano Ronaldo's side failed to turn dominance into victory. Portugal, led by the 41-year-old in his 6th World Cup, took an early lead but were pegged back just before halftime as DRC struck a historic equalizer. After the match, Portugal head coach Roberto Martinez defended his decision to keep Ronaldo on the pitch.
We were finding it difficult to get into the box. I think you can use the qualities of Cristiano Ronaldo. It makes no sense to get the best goal scorer in world football out in a game that you need goals. The experience of Cristiano in the box is important. The way that he attracts defenders is important. The way that we can use the space is important. And every player has a responsibility or a piece of quality on the pitch. And clearly, when you look for goals, you need to have Cristiano on the pitch.
Meantime, DRC head coach Sébastien Desabre praised his side's performance, but stressed there's still work to do in the group.
Well, we only drew against one of the best teams in the world, so we are happy, but it's not enough. So the insight we can take from this match is that by winning one of the other 2 matches, we will be qualified. That's the first piece of information, and it's a very open group. So we're going to recover well, and then we will go to Mexico to try to put on the list the same performance.
Portugal will next face Uzbekistan, while DRC meets Colombia in their Group K fixtures. And for some analysis now, Young Guang joins us in the studio. So Portugal has great talents on paper, but they look disappointing in that first game. So what went wrong for them out there?
Mainly, Portugal were far too sluggish in the final third when they attack, settling for safe passes instead of incisive movement. On paper, Portugal boasts arguably the best midfield in the tournament, yet they failed to convert that edge into goals. After taking the lead, they seemed more content to protect it than to double it. Much of the criticism has landed on Cristiano Ronaldo, but at 41, he is no longer the scoring machine Portugal can lean on in crunch moments, and he wasn't the reason behind this shocking draw. Ronaldo can still offer a clinical finish when chances fall his way, but sterile passing in front of the penalty area won't create those chances. Portugal must pick up the pace now and start playing riskier, more penetrating passes in the attacking third.
Okay, moving on to Group L at the World Cup. England came from behind to secure an impressive win over Croatia in Dallas in a lively opening encounter. The match, a repeat of the 2018 semi-final, saw England produce a strong second-half performance to take control after a tightly contested first period. England captain Harry Kane was once again among the scorers, continuing his prolific World Cup record, while Marcus Rashford also made an impact off the bench. After the match, Kane revealed what England manager Thomas Tuchel said at halftime.
Yeah, he gave a great speech, to be honest, especially the way we conceded that second goal just before the half. He just told us to let the shackles off, calm down, what are we scared of? Let's just go. Yeah, the way we conceded that second goal is not the team we want to be. He kind of just said, what's the worst that can happen? We lose a match, first group game, we get on with it, we move on. Let's just go and show kind of the world who we can be.
England will next face Ghana, while Croatia will meet Panama in their second Group L fixtures. Young Guang, England always has great players, but usually lose the big games at the World Cup. Is this strong start in the United States a sign that things might be different this time around?
Yeah, maybe. England delivered their best performance of the tournament so far against Croatia. Harry Kane anchors the attack with Gordon, Madueke and Bellingham providing the supporting runs. The attacking strategy is sharp and well-defined, a clear departure from the past when too many big names crowded the pitch, all expecting the ball to land at their feet. The squad now looks balanced across all three lines, and head coach Thomas Tuchel has brought that refreshing pragmatism to the tactics. This England side plays direct, efficient football. Bellingham's third goal and Rashford's fourth were textbook examples of why this system works. I mean, omitting names like Cole Palmer and Phil Foden from the World Cup squad is already shaping up to be a masterstroke by Tuchel. This team is united and knows exactly what brand of football they want to play.
All right, thank you very much. A little more in Group L here. Again, snatched a dramatic late victory over Panama in Toronto, the stoppage time goal to secure a vital win. Ghana made the most of limited chances in a match where they were also forced to cope with several setbacks, including injuries and key absences. It marked the first competitive win under manager Carlos Queiroz, with Ghana now preparing to face group leaders England in their next fixture. Meantime, Colombia began their World Cup campaign with a confident win over Uzbekistan in a lively encounter. Luis Diaz was at the center of much of Colombia's attacking play, scoring and assisting as his side overcame a resilient Uzbek team that had briefly leveled the contest. Colombia finished strongly, adding a late goal to secure the result. Chinese referee Ma Ning is set to make history at the World Cup as he prepares to take charge of Saturday's Group E matchup between Ecuador and Curacao in Kansas City. He'll become the first Chinese official in 24 years to referee a match at the tournament, marking a significant milestone for Chinese officiating on football's biggest stage. FIFA's also appointed Chinese assistant referee Zhou Fei for the same game, while compatriot Fu Ming has already worked as a video assistant referee, meaning all three Chinese officials will have featured at the tournament in North America. Ma brings extensive international experience, having served as a fourth official at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. He also officiated at last year's Club World Cup, and he was part of the officiating team for the 2023 Asian Cup final. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, documentaries take center stage at the Shanghai International Film Festival.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
At 53 past the hour. In culture and entertainment, documentaries have the power to capture reality, preserve memories, and bring people closer through shared human experiences. At the Shanghai International Film Festival, Zheng Chuning spoke to award-winning documentary filmmaker Gita Gandbir to find out more.
So with the rise of global streaming platforms, artificial intelligence, our viewing habit is changing. So at this time, why do you think we still need documentary films?
I think we need documentary films, particularly in this time, because there are a lot of bad actors in power, and this is across the world, that would want to divide us and want to tell very specific stories about people that are not true. And I think documentaries dispel that myth and those myths. And there's a lot of fear, too. And the media is, again, the news media, which used to be, and journalism, which used to be a reliable source, particularly particularly in the US, which used to be a reliable source of information, is now under direct threat. So when that happens, you have to have an alternative.
So do you think good documentary films will help the world understand China better?
Yes, I do, 100%. I think that, and the ones that I have seen absolutely do that.
And you've watched many Chinese documentary films during the festival. So what are some of the qualities of Chinese film do you think resonate with the global audience?
The best films lead with humanity and the human experience and are accessible to people from anywhere in the world. And I think with Chinese cinema, what you see that is so beautiful, and what I am seeing with the documentaries that, particularly in recent years, is they're really leaning in a very courageous way into both the positive, but also the discomfort. You know, the human experience is very complex. And when you give a proper 360 portrait of the human experience, people relate to it. They understand it. Because we all live it. We're all human. We all want the same things. We all have the same failings. So I think that is what makes what I've seen in sort of the evolution of Chinese cinema, and particularly documentary, the fearlessness really makes a film powerful.
And last but not least, looking ahead into the future, what are some of the opportunities for collaboration do you see between Chinese documentary filmmakers and the international ones?
I think the interest is wide. Again, the interest is wide in films that speak to the human experience and take these kind of risks and are brave. And when we're seeing that, and so the market is perking up around that in a global way.
As documentary filmmaker Gita Ganbir talking about the role of documentaries in a divided world and why authentic storytelling matters. Major new exhibitions opened at the Museum of Art Pudong in Shanghai, showcasing works by an Italian modernist painter titled Giorgio Morandi Solo, and jointly organized by the Museum Morandi. It's the largest Morandi exhibition of the 21st century. Museum director Li Minkun described the event as a magnet for domestic and international art lovers.
This exhibition is sure to spark a wave of enthusiasm among visitors this summer. Chinese audiences already have a deep appreciation for Morandi. We expect many international visitors to travel to Shanghai specifically for this exhibition. We are truly delighted. We believe this exhibition belongs not only to the Museum of Art Pudong, but to China and to the world.
Exhibition features over 200 works from more than 30 international collections, with more than 120 pieces showing in China for the very first time. The 32nd Beijing International Book Fair is underway at the China National Convention Center. The 5-day event features more than 1,700 exhibitors from 82 countries and regions, showcasing around 220,000 book titles. This year's guest country of honor is United Arab Emirates, while more than 20 countries, including Russia, Germany, and Italy, have set up national pavilions. Major international publishing houses such as Springer Nature, Penguin Random House, and Cengage are also taking part. Alongside traditional publishing, the fair highlights the growing role of digital content, with companies like Tencent, Douyin, and NetEase presenting online literature, gaming, and animation projects. We're at 57 past the hour. Beijing's overcast this evening. A moderate rainfall developing tomorrow. The low's 23 and it's up to 29 on Friday. Shanghai will see a light rain this evening. It's picking up to moderate rain tomorrow. A low of 24 and a high of 29. Chongqing will see some rain tonight as well. It becomes cloudy tomorrow. A low of 21 and a high of 31. Nanchang will see moderate rainfall becoming heavy tomorrow. A low of 26 and a high of 29. Laos is getting showers tonight and tomorrow. A low of 12 and a high of 24. And elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will see a light rainfall tonight and tomorrow. The low is 24. It's up to 36 on Friday. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, General Secretary Xi Jinping of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee has called for preserving revolutionary traditions while striving for progress. And the U.S. and Iranian presidents have digitally signed the MoU for ending the conflict between their countries. On behalf of the staff, Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the Yellow River in his eyes.
The Yellow River is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in a time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio